For most of us, the world of the samurai exists only in popular entertainment, foreign, exotic, and unreachable. A new exhibit at the Houston Museum of Natural Science, however, intends to change all that.
We are in the samurai exhibit at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. It opened November 21st and will be here for quite a while through September of 2015. This is a collection of mostly armor related to the samurai period, or at least a part thereof, coming from a museum in Florence, Italy, of all places. An incredible collection put together shortly after Japan opened to the Western world. More or less, to put it in American history terms, a little bit after the Civil War was over here in the United States. So there are some incredible old pieces here on display in pristine condition. This is a museum that was run by and started by an Englishman, another interesting combination, who had the means and the interest to collect, among other things, Japanese armor. So we have on display items that are about the size of a small saucer, all the way up to a series of full Japanese armor. We have samurais seated, standing with bows and arrows, with their swords, and we even have a write-up on female samurais. So it's a whole smorgasbord, if that's the right image, of Japanese weaponry. It is, for history buffs, I would say, a very interesting show to learn more about this culture. We have, as we always do, a timeline to get everything organized in your mind. There are beautiful pieces on display. There is almost like a Where is Waldo samurai style, to use another mixed metaphor. We have a number of blades on display, the katanas, the samurai swords, and there's so many details. It really pays if you stop and look at things. There are some that have a beautiful sheath that have nothing but all kinds of small insects as part of the decoration. There is one where you have to look at it upside down, but the edge of the blade is sharpened, and that takes weeks, by the way, by hand with all kinds of stone. But the edge of the sharpened part is not a straight line, it is kind of wobbly. And then you realize, wait a minute, that's not just wobbly, it is a landscape. And it has Mount Fuji in it, their sacred mountain. So they knew what they were doing. And to make it even more interesting, it's on either side of the blade. Identical position, identical image, done by hand. And this is just one or two examples of, as you walk through the exhibit, the things you can see if you take your time, and then you go, whoa, look at this, whoa, look at that. You do get reflections of this ancient society, which went through an incredible evolution from at first being fairly open to the Western world, with traders coming in the 1500s from Portugal and a little bit later from the Netherlands. So they were engaged with the outside world. And that brings with it all kinds of social change, including, of course, the introduction of firearms. And then at one point, the leadership, the shoguns in Japan, decide that's it. They shut down to the outside world. They look inward for about 200 years. And that's the 200 years preceding Commodore Perry coming to the Bay of Tokyo. So for about 200 years, Japan is looking inward, almost completely isolated from the outside world. So if you can say it in those terms, it's almost like the human equivalent of a living fossil. They have their own traditions. They went back to the pre-firearm samurai tradition. And then eventually, when Commodore Perry goes into the bay, fires some of his naval artillery, it opens up, and Japan is off to the races and is part of the modern world ever since. For better or worse, we know what happened. But that's not part of the exhibit. It is the preceding part that tells you all about that world that probably we don't know all that much about unless you come to the exhibit.
For more information on this, other exhibits, and upcoming lectures and events, go online to HMNS.org. For Day Trips, this is Randall Williams.